Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I suppose it's our masterclass series that we commenced last year in 2024, which we're carrying over now into 2025. And it's fantastic that everybody can join us. I think you're in for a fantastic hour ahead. We're going to look to finish probably 2 o'clock Melbourne time and 1 o'clock over in Brizzy time, if that is where you are. We're here thanks to Profit Master Global Outsourcing, your premium offshore solution. My name is Paul Jansz. It's great to be back. And again, thank you for all of you for joining us today. Now, who is Profit Master Global Outsourcing? Just in case you don't know, they're a premium offshore solution. So they're based in the Philippines. They've got access to probably close to 170,000 degree qualified professionals. So if you're looking at ways that you can somehow your back-end administration, I know a lot of people are doing that, or whether it's professional accountants that you're searching for. I know there's a saving of close to 50% off the total employment costs. So it's worth looking at. If you haven't looked into it, check them out, Profit Master Global Outsourcing. Now, this masterclass series, we sort of started it last year in 2024 as an educational series, all built for you. There's day-to-day things that we're going to bring up. There's going to be more strategic things we're going to bring up. But ideally for all you people as our professionals out there, just continued education. So I've got some fantastic guests lined up for the whole of this year. We'll be kicking it off today. I'm calling them, look, let's call it our masterclass brilliant minds. That's what I'm going to refer to them as they continue to share things that, again, sometimes we may not be aware of, and some things we might be that we want to know more information about. And that's what this whole masterclass series is about. Let me introduce you to our first guest. It's, again, our masterclass brilliant mind, Torey Hensel. Welcome. How are you, mate?
Hey, guys. Hey, Paul. Thank you so much for the warm intro.
My pleasure. I think everyone will find out a little bit more about you very soon. But yes, it is our first masterclass for 2025. Hard to believe that it's already 18th February. I don't know. It's almost like you get past Australia Day nowadays and bang, before you know it, it's nearly March, which it nearly is in a couple of weeks, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So, mate, let's start with you. Let's give everybody a little bit of an idea of who you are. So are you okay to share a little bit about you, given your experience, certainly in the professional services industry, before we kick off with our topic?
Yeah, okay. I guess my background, I started my career in financial services around 14 years ago now, which is a bit scary. I was a financial advisor for 5 years before moving into the mortgage broking space. Realized I didn't like talking to superannuation companies, and then I didn't want to talk to banks anymore. So worked my way into a property investment role within a financial services organization. And from there have worked within a few larger organizations, I guess, bringing together the services that those organizations offer clients in a sort of one-stop shop, more cohesive and palatable service offering for clients. So holding their hand, walking them through each step of what they need to do and achieve to get ahead financially. And that's the 2 minutes of the last 14 years. So
yeah, brilliant. Look, every time that we've caught up, and that's probably the element that I enjoy learning as well. And I think whether it's these sort of masterclass series, or certainly from what I continue to learn, whether it's from books, and I'm surrounded by books, my background's books. So to me, it's all about learning. And I think the people that I connect with and like being around is very much the same. And I know every single time we catch up, there's always something that triggers in my brain to go, that's really, really good. And I'd love to be able to share that on a platform like this. So hence why to all of you guys that have joined us, you've got the opportunity. I met Torey probably 12 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. And just the way that sort of things are broken down, hopefully you guys are all going to benefit from that today. Let's get into our topic. So our topic is growing your revenue, the accountant's dilemma. So I know we've got a number of different accounting firms from all around the country. Actually, I've got firms on from Singapore, from Malaysia as well. So this is going to be interesting to see. I always love when I see people that are online from, or register online from overseas as well, which is fantastic. Mate, let's talk about the subject heading. Why do you believe growing revenue in the accounting industry is a problem, or, as the subject heading says, a dilemma?
Yeah, well, I'll try to keep what we run through today. There'll be a lot of aspects that will be global or that will be applicable to any financial services organization, whether it's here or abroad. But we're currently in very interesting times at the moment as financial services professionals. And at Tmrw Consulting, we see two main challenges that professional services or the professional services industry is currently facing: technology and value. So technology meaning the advancements that we're seeing of AI and automation, and value being the sort of what does providing value look like at a time when the technological solutions are getting better and cheaper and staff are getting more expensive. So in some respects, it's never been easier to grow a financial services firm, and in some respects, it's never been more difficult. So it's a bit of an interesting time, and the real challenge, as we see it, is how do firms adapt in a way that allows them to harness the IQ intelligence part of AI, which is where the technology is strongest, and leverage the EQ emotional intelligence part of their business to provide a better client experience. No matter how quickly technology changes, it's not going to override the last 200,000 years of social evolution. So we're always going to want to have a human involved in the process to some degree. If for no other reason, then it's very difficult to hold a machine accountable if something is to go wrong. So AI will eliminate parts of financial services jobs, but that opens doors to other parts, and those other parts are what firms are really going to need to turn their focus towards, at least in our view.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk about that tech landscape, let's call it. And I know that as there's some of us, most of us, I'll put my hand up and say I'm probably scraping the surface a little bit with regards to artificial intelligence and AI and the way that I should be using it. But let's talk about the tech landscape that you just mentioned then, and let's talk about the impact on professional services. And we've used accounting, so let's talk professional services accounting, and the need to, let's call it, adapt to becoming more strategic in providing solutions to clients. How do you think that this should become about?
Yeah, it's a subject very close to my heart. I have sort of been one of the early adopters, I think, and Tmrw Consulting is built around the technology that is not just here right now, but is here to come, or that is going to sort of change the landscape in financial services. So I think most professional services firms are unfortunately asleep at the wheel when it comes to the big tech changes that are just around the corner. So the big breakthrough over the last 5 years, and I'll take a step back,
Yep.
is the advancement of GPTs. So these GPTs are generative pre-trained transformers. Generative meaning that they generate text on pre-trained information like the internet. Transformers are the special computers that understand the relationship between words so that they can generate a custom response that sounds pretty natural. They don't just regurgitate what they've learned, they actually can understand the context of the words. And that's the big change that we've seen over the last 5 years. Now, this is important to understand because this is the technology that will replace a large portion of what we do as financial services professionals. Another way, actually, I heard a really good explanation the other day of how to understand this technology, because it's difficult to understand, well, does it think like us? Does it think at all? How does it really work? Imagine you're at a party, and every time you start a sentence, there's somebody next to you who has a perfect memory, who can remember everything you've ever said, read everything you've ever written. They've watched every TV show and read every book that you have. Now, this person who's next to you can't think like you, but they would be exceptionally good at predicting what word is going to come out of your mouth next. That's what a GPT does. So it doesn't think in the way that we think, but it does a really good job at predicting what we're thinking, or in some cases, what we should be thinking.
Okay.
So does that all make sense?
Yeah, well, if it's one thing I've picked up straight away within the first 12 minutes is the fact that that's what the GPT stands for in ChatGPT.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where all of the large language models that we're seeing, Claude, they're basically the 8 or 9 different versions of it. They all utilize that same framework of the technology. And it's still very early, but it's improving at an astronomical rate. In a few short years, it's gone from being pretty cool, but struggling with basic maths and problem solving to now equaling some of the most advanced benchmarks and smartest people alive in a few short years. But the reason for these improvements isn't because of the big advancements in the underlying technology. And this is really important. It's because once you have a system like a GPT, because it auto-generates statistical relationships, as you add more layers of data and abstraction into the network, it just continues to improve. So just using this base technology that exists, it is a almost 100%, let's say 99.9% certainty that somewhere in the realm of 30 to 60% of current financial services tasks, and I know Thomas Reuters and Carbon Group have done some good research here, 30 to 60% of current financial services tasks will be completely automated. And we're talking within a 5-year timeframe.
Yep.
And it's not even a stretch to say that in 18 months, we'll have access to AI employees who are specifically trained in our businesses. So we're in for some pretty crazy tech changes.
So yeah, it's hard to actually think about how that can all come into play. And I'm sure people are listening to this as well. Some might be going, "Yep, I'm with you, and I can understand it." The others are going like me, like how but I can actually see that it's going to happen quicker than you think because the speed that it's moving at is just incredible at the moment. And it's only going to get faster, I think, as you said, because the more data that goes through that, the more information that it's going to be creating.
Yes.
So from an adaptability point of view, making sure that professional service firms providing more strategic based solutions to clients, what's your thought process on that?
Yeah, well, I guess the main point, or the overarching point that I want to stress, is that AI will eliminate part of a lot of jobs, but
Yes.
then it'll open up the door to other parts. So those other parts are really what firms are going to need to turn their focus towards.
Okay. So the key is, so working through what those other parts are and then amplifying that.
Yes, exactly. I think backing up, what we can do is we can talk about the current ways that practices can grow, or that how do we grow an accounting practice from a first principle standpoint. And then we can start to see the areas in which we can inject the good parts of AI and then the good parts of the human experience to hopefully provide a better service all around for clients. So, and that's going to hopefully be the end result of this, is that technology fulfills the boring automated side of, well, maybe not boring, but the automated side of the work, and allowing the human strategic solutions to be at the forefront of the value proposition for that business.
Okay, good. So there's a couple of different angles we can look at here, which is great because I think for all the businesses that are online thinking about from a operational strategic perspective, there's different ways that we can go down this road. And I suppose just picking up what you just mentioned there, I suppose having coached accounting firms and financial services firms for 20 plus years, we've always gone down this strategic path, especially this time of the year. You've started a new calendar year, you set a planning day, and we talk about most firms want to grow, whether it's a top line, whether it's a bottom line, it's usually a bit of both. So I would usually talk about, well, there's two ways, I suppose. One is to bring in new clients, and two is to increase the average fee of their existing client. Do you see it any differently?
No, I think that's spot on. I don't think those two things will change. However, it's the dynamic of how to achieve those two things that's changing.
Okay.
So the question for firms is, what does providing value now look like in an age of AI? So if we work from first principles around how to grow an accounting practice, let's say,
Yep.
there have only ever been three ways to do it. You reduce your costs, so you streamline staffing. Outsourcing is a great way to reduce your costs, reducing overheads, improve systems and processes. The second way is you increase the number or volume of clients. So you could buy a book or engage traditional marketing, advertising, branding, making social media content, networking events, sponsorships, so on.
Yep.
Third way is you increase the value of existing clients. So you either raise prices or you offer additional services on top of accounting, like financial planning, lending, property investment, legal, either internally by opening up these wings in your existing business or externally through referral relationships. So
Right.
to grow, you have to be doing some or all of these things. Now, the issue is that's easier said than done. I mean, so for the first point, reducing costs, that is practically very difficult for a lot of, especially financial services and accounting firms, because they're not usually running with too much fat in between anyway. It's difficult to get ahead just by cutting a few costs here and there as well. So that's a way that businesses can maybe increase their revenue a little bit, but it has limited returns. The second way, the difficulty is the difficulty of increasing the number of clients is that it's costly in terms of money if you buy a book, and it's costly in both money and time to implement a marketing campaign and to generate social media content and take photos and blog articles and email newsletters. But it's costly as well in terms of time, because once you attract the new clients, you have to service them as well. And accountants are typically very busy, as we know. Then there's the third difficulty, just to round it all out, the increasing the value of existing clients. Raising prices hits diminishing returns pretty quickly, especially with how competitive the current environment is. Setting up additional services wings to your business is another option. It requires finding the right partner to run it, licensing, staff, insurance, office space, and all in an industry that you may not be overly familiar with. The other option here is referral relationships. So you have to find and curate a network of trusted financial services professionals, but strictly between us, Paul, accountants are not known for their love of networking events, and a lot don't probably have a bit of work to do, let's say, in terms of referring, and quite frankly, a lot of them don't want to be held responsible for the advice of somebody else. And so all that being said, there are solutions to these hurdles and opportunities within each of these areas. Identifying which solution is going to be right is probably a sort of firm by firm process, and it really comes down to the individual goals of that firm.
Yep.
So that's, I guess, to make everybody sad, the challenges that a lot of the firms that we speak with are going through. And there are solutions that are on the horizon technologically, but the sort of big solutions that we see for these firms is transitioning to a more strategic, more client-focused, service-focused outlook for their business, because that's what's never going to be taken over by the advancement of technology. And that aspect of those businesses is only going to become better and more amplified once the technology is the same for everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think one of the comments you made there, which is around value. Now, again, being around so many firms for so many years, I can probably share that that is a challenge for most, how they continually show value as opposed to just it's I don't know, they sometimes feel that, well, the charging aspect is one thing, I'll get the job done and I'll charge for it, and then there's usually a challenge when the bill is not paid, because that's where the value proposition is lost. So you've got to sometimes challenge the firms out there. Well, what is value based? You've got 500 clients out there, and we're spending 30, 40, 50, sometimes $100,000 trying to bring in new clients, but we've got 500 clients sitting out here that we could add additional value to increase the average fee.
Yes, yeah, exactly correct. It's one of the issues with, I guess, traditional marketing or
That's
conventional.
exactly right. Yeah, that's right. But we tend to still search for new clients as opposed to find the value proposition with the existing clients. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, I think it sort of goes back to the way that conventional or traditional marketing has always occurred in financial services. Bringing it back to the 3 ways to grow: reduce costs, increase the number of clients, or increase the value of existing clients. Traditional marketing, so branding, websites, doing a social media campaign, paid and non-paid content, ultimately it all points towards the same goal, which is more leads.
Yep.
It's not really designed to add value to your existing client base. So it's obviously a good way to grow, but it is just one element of growth. And I agree with you that I think the third element of increasing the value for your existing client base is really the big underutilized element that is worth exploring moving forward, given the change in the tech landscape.
Yeah, yeah. Look, and it's an interesting one, because I sometimes feel that when you challenge a client with regards to the clients that they've got, they're more than happy to go and spend as much money on marketing. And again, you just mentioned from a traditional marketing or conventional marketing, I think you used the word that there's but there's no guarantees in that. You can go and spend $100,000. There's no guarantee you'll actually get a return on investment. It is just getting yourself out there, and you're doing more, and you're getting to networking events, and you're spending some on Facebook, and you're hoping that you're going to attract the right type of client.
Yeah.
When I sometimes look at it and say, well, you got clients there, is it a fear? Like, is it a fear of going to existing clients and looking to add value and provide them with more? And it's an interesting one that still haven't been able to break down. And I don't know if anyone's online that loves to leave a comment, please use the Q&A bar or the chat bar and throw us some comments if you've got them. But I've always thought, is it a fear to go to your existing clients and try and add more value to them? Because to me, that's a bit of a no-brainer, because you've got a relationship with them. They're already an existing client.
Yeah, completely agree. I'd love to hear the comments as well as to why why that's not the first thing. I mean, again, you'll probably gather that I love the first principles thinking, and if we look at what the client really wants to achieve, it's getting ahead financially, whatever that might look like to them. It could be paying off their home loan, or it could be paying their kids' school fees, or maybe reducing their business debt, or getting ahead for retirement and putting a plan in place for later in life. Estate planning and wills, all of these things are within the purview of any sort of good accounting conversation, because they typically all have tax elements to them. But if an accountant stays within their I guess within their sort of tax bubble is what I typically call it, where they have the documents, they've got the spreadsheets, they do the tax, and that's my job. Tax license says I give this tax advice, and that's it. It misses the human element that I think we need to start focusing more and more on, being, okay, cool, we can do the job for you, but we also want to know in what other ways can we assist you.
Yes.
Using our knowledge as accountants and our network of trusted professionals who we can at least be confident are going to guide you in the right direction. And that's nothing but a value add if it's done correctly. It doesn't have to be a big show about the selling of the services or anything like that. It's purely just a, hey, if you have this issue, let's see if we can solve it together. That's the type of service that I think clients are going to come to expect from accountants moving forwards, because everybody's going to be able to do the job really quickly if AI can fulfill 60% of those tasks.
Yes, yes. And to be fair again, and to be fair to all the accountants online, I've worked with them and I've loved them for a very long time. But it is solving a bit of a, you might come up with a good solution, but to us as the business owner or the individual, we've still got to pay tax. So we still, we might be able to reduce it. We might be able to, so the service you're providing as an accountant out there, we've still got to pay our taxes, whether it be our business tax or our personal tax. We're sort of approaching where a lot of firms are going to talk about tax planning soon, but that's really it. So what other value are you providing the business owner or the individual? That's that missing element. Some get it, don't get me wrong. There are some firms out there that actually get that. But I would say a high percentage of our industry doesn't get that. So I'm going to come back to one question to ask you based on your knowledge, and that is whether it's revenue, call it growth if you want to call it profit. I sometimes call it net profit. What sort of dollars do you think are being left on the table by not doing this extra value add conversation, let's call it?
Oh, Paul, it's it's crazy if done well. And the real caveat to this is, if done well, it can completely transform an accounting firm, having a high quality network of trusted professionals who you can rely on to get the job done, and who will in turn rely on you to get the job done for their clients. Conservatively speaking, 25 to 60% additional annual revenue. I've seen firms, just by adding a 5-minute conversation with each client that comes in for a tax return, add 50% on their bottom line within a matter of months.
Okay.
So if it's done well, it can really work well. If it's done poorly, and I think poorly can be a lack of boundaries, it can be in the delivery of the referrals, it can be not the right partners. There are plenty of reasons why it might not be as smooth as what I'm sort of making out. That's the hurdle that I think a lot of accountants are going to have to jump over. They've had poor experiences, one, two, three referrals in the past haven't gone the way that they might have liked, or they simply just don't have those conversations, opening those boxes for clients. That's where it can really, the accountants are going to have to come to a solution within their business to provide those additional services to add value to clients, because that's what they're going to come to expect. And there's going to be a gap in my mind that opens up between the firms who take advantage of the automation side of what's coming, and you might have a staff member that's 10 times as productive with the numbers based tasks that they had previously been doing. Then you've got 10 times the time, or 9 times the time on the outside to provide additional value. And if all you're really doing in terms of additional value is offering the same type of advice that you might be able to see, or you might be able to even type into a large language model to find a solution, it's just not going to hold up to what's coming. Maybe now because the technology is still so early, but at some point in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they're going to need to provide more. And that's just where we see the industry going.
And I suppose it also, back to the point of, call it the dilemma. This is probably a bit of a challenge to, everybody online that's actually listening and watching, and that is, what type of model do you want to build as well? We know to bring in more clients, let's say, and we, a lot of the firms that I speak to say, oh, we've got no problems in picking up clients. Our biggest challenge is actually finding people. Okay, so it's having the capacity to complete the work. I suppose great that we've got models like a Profit Master there to provide. Again, we know we're in a people shortage space. So then you're talking about the ability where there could be that automated machine learning comes into taking over some of those tasks as well. But it seems like there's a bit of the old mouse on the treadmill a little bit, isn't it? Because to increase revenue, you need more clients. To attract more clients, you need more time. You need obviously more staff, and those staff aren't there. So which model do you want to run with? Which is, in my opinion, probably sometimes part of the dilemma as well.
Yeah, well, spot on. And that's where, sort of going back to traditional marketing, that's where the traditional ways of growing accounting firms haven't been as fruitful as I'm sure there's people in the audience who have had the experience of going to a marketing company, spending 10, 15 grand. And at the end of it, you sort of ask yourself, okay, well, how much money did that actually bring in? It's, as you outlined, that the problem is that those models are designed to attract more clients. But as a busy partner or director, you need more time to generate the marketing campaign and to service those new clients. So to free up time, you'll need to get additional help or support in the form of additional staff. But to hire more staff, you need more revenue because they don't work for free. But to increase revenue, you need more clients, which brings us straight back to attracting more clients means you're going to need more time. So that's the cycle that many partners and directors struggle to break free from using traditional marketing methods. And that's where the third method of increasing the value to your current accounting book is so vital, because to me, that really is the missing piece that can allow each of those three elements to work together. Reducing costs, getting more clients, increasing the value. That's the holy trinity. Put those together and you've got a great business.
Yep. Okay, so let's look at it from, let's reverse engineer it a little bit. Let's look at it from a client's perspective. So you run a successful business. I run a business. So how are you seeing it from your perspective to what you're looking for from a client's perspective that maybe you're not receiving?
Yeah, look, this is a real passion of mine. And to be honest, it's the reason I started Tmrw Consulting. Most people out there, they know that they should be doing more with their money. They want to pay down their home loan, budget better, pay for kids' private schools, grow wealth for retirement, and pay less tax in the process.
Yep.
But because there are accountants, financial planners, buyer's agents, finance brokers, solicitors, all in that space and all completely separate in terms of licensing, people just don't know who to talk to get started or even what questions to ask. Each professional typically looks after a piece of that client's financial needs, but nobody's looking at the whole picture.
Yep.
So that's the real challenge for clients, is to get all of their ducks in a row, knowing which professional can add value to their position, who to engage first, who to trust, and then feeling comfortable each step of the way. And the way to do that is by having that right team of professionals working together with a clear strategy that, as we say, gets you to the finish line faster. But unfortunately, if all that clients are receiving is the narrow sort of conversation in line with the advice that the professional can give, they never are exposed to these other elements in terms of what value can be created by these additional services professionals. So it's a real gap that I think will it's partly why we started the business, because bringing together a number of different financial services professionals for us just means that we have the ability to find a better way for the client. And ultimately, again, if we go back to first principles, if there's a way to do something better, if there's a way to structure your finance better, if there's value to be had utilizing the services of any financial services professional, I believe personally that's what is in the best interest of that client. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it is a really interesting one when you're sitting in the shoes of the client, I suppose. And I think there's an element there of hand holding along the way as well, because there's a reason why the accountant is the trusted or the number one trusted advisor, because most of us have had our accountants for quite a long time. You've got to do something really, really bad for a client to leave. So,
Yeah.
but they also want to, with increasing costs, we know that salaries have increased. The return on investment in terms of our people is not going up, it's going down, which means there's less profit. So there's squeezes everywhere, I suppose, and that's something that you've been talking about today. So the idea is, how do we start getting a different view of what that looks like in the future? So in your opinion, what do you believe that looks like? We're early into 2025. Yes, we're going to continue to be smashed by artificial intelligence and machine learning and every other element that can probably take away certain things that people do right now. And so what does that look like moving forward?
Personally, I'm really excited. I think it's going to provide clients with much, much more value than they've ever had before. The, I guess, downside or upside, depending on which side of the fence that you're on, is that there's going to be a big gap that opens up between the firms that are taking advantage of the technology and those who aren't. Those who do take advantage of the AI and the new tech automation changes are going to allow their businesses to turn towards the more strategic solutions for clients, which in turn will sort of give clients the best of both worlds. And that is going to be competition that, if you're slow on the uptake and you wait 3, 4, 5 years before starting to learn how to integrate the new technology into your firm to then change the model to where you've seen others go, is going to leave you a long way behind your competition as things are moving so quickly. So AI will eliminate part of the jobs, but it will open up the doors to other parts. Those other parts are what is going to allow a firm in 2028 to have had substantial growth, or to have really struggled against the tide of basically just being reactionary to the changes that we're seeing. AI is just a productivity tool. It's nothing more. It increases the productivity of the worker. It allows them to do less repetitive work and more creative work. And so in terms of which staff are probably going to shine over this period, it's those staff who value the creative work and the client experience, and can really bring out the best in your business, because the technical side is going to become less important. That's what AI is really good at. So,
and I think that's the opportunity. I think, and I think that's what probably excites you as well. But I think that's the opportunity, certainly, to firms out there to get out and have those conversations with clients. And that's probably an area that, I don't know, if I look at artificial intelligence, can AI replace empathy as an example? I know I was actually watching something only last week about this, and I thought, gee, that's a really interesting question. Someone asked that question, and it's like, can they replace empathy? What's your thoughts on that?
well, it depends on what you mean by empathy, because in my mind, there's sympathy and there's empathy. It's more of a philosophical point. So, empathy would be feeling what the other person is feeling. Sympathy being that you can feel sympathy for what they're feeling.
Okay.
So, does an AI feel? I think that takes consciousness. Can an AI appear as though it's feeling and be sympathetic? Yes.
Yes.
So and those lines are going to become more and more blurred. It's a really interesting time because there are a number of those sort of philosophical questions that haven't yet been explored, and we're all going to face it together. I don't know if you're having. I've got a friend of ours who's going into labor today, and I don't think her child will ever need to drive a car. Self-driving, you'd be crazy to get behind a wheel because the machines are so much better and safer than humans. We've just got these little wet machines up here that are nowhere near as fast or as accurate as the mechanical ones. So I think there are a number of really longer term big changes that are coming.
Yep.
That can hurt your brain to think about sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
There'll be a period in between, which I think we're right at the start of now, bringing it back to business, where harnessing the best parts of what's to come and then amplifying the best parts of what humans can provide in terms of services. And this can be anything. This is any financial service, and almost any other service-based business. The more that we can amplify the human experience and have better, more value-adding conversations with clients, then that's just going to be a net win for everybody. The businesses that embrace it are going to do really well. The clients are going to love it because they're getting 5 times the value that they did before.
Yep.
And that's the period that I'm really excited about. And that's where it's sort of the writing is on the wall. That's where the technology is heading. It's here already. It's just a case of when at this point.
Yep. Well, look, I'd agree. And I think that's again, the opportunity that exists in terms of, you said it before, having those conversations. I know in previous masterclasses, there's a fellow out there that's again, a great coach. A shout out to Warwick Cavell. So Warwick and I do a lot of training in this space with a lot of accounting firms around just teaching them how to have those conversations, because they don't have those type of skills. They've got the technical skills, but do they have the other skills to get out there and create those conversations that'll then open up those opportunities? And we're finding that a lot of firms don't have that. So yeah, but it's an opportunity, and that's exactly what exists as we move into 2025 and beyond. What does that look like for the client moving forward? Especially, I know there's a huge amount of, I know the insolvency firms as an example. If they're an insolvency firm online, you're probably doing fairly well. You look at the amount of businesses that are going out of business at the moment, and therefore needing a different service with those insolvency guys. They're out of control at the moment. So we've got to really think about, and to all the accountants, you would know the clients that are in trouble. So it's about how we actually get out there and have a different conversation with them. That's what you're suggesting, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you've just reminded me of a conversation I had a few days ago with an accountant who was looking to get out of the industry, move on, retire, and a large part of his book was made up of individual tax returns, clients who he has a fairly high traffic office, and had a number of sort of walk-ins, as you'd call them, mum and dads who might be on fairly solid incomes, sort of 100, 200 grand each. And he would obviously do do the work for those clients, do the individual tax returns, but there's only sort of so many things that you can do as an accountant when you're faced with those type of clients. And to be honest, in terms of the value of a book of accounting clients, they're the type of clients that are right down the bottom. So we're seeing the value at the moment of those clients even further drop because of the automation that's to come. If there are only limited things that can be done for those type of people, they're the sort of low-hanging fruit for automation to take over. Now, if we look at the more holistic financial services model, those type of clients are for financial planners, for buyer's agents, for solicitors. If they're looking at superannuation, they're the best clients for those organizations. Typically, they haven't been spoken to about what opportunity might be available to them investing in whether it's shares or property, or tidying up their super or the investments inside super, or their risk insurances inside super, looking at different types of property investment, commercial, residential, industrial, what fits their financial position, making sure that their wills and estate planning are all up to scratch, making sure that they've checked that their loan is the best deal that they could be getting using a qualified mortgage broker, and making sure that the structuring moving forward is optimal for their own financial position. What we find is so many Australians, because we weren't taught any of this in school, so many of us just don't. We have our 9 to 5, Monday to Friday jobs, and the last thing we want to do at the end of a long working week is have a 2-hour chat about our finances with somebody. So these things are left pushed to the side, where with a 5-minute conversation with an accountant, just to ask the questions: when was the last time you reviewed your super? When was the last time that you sat down and put a plan in place for your finances? How do we take advantage of all of the tax money that you're currently paying to the government? Can we leverage any part of that for future wealth growing and investment? That's a 2 to 5 minute conversation that really could change that client's life. And accountants are in the best, they're in the box seat to take advantage of what they would call the lowest value clients in their book, to provide a massive amount of value and to reap the financial rewards off the back of providing that value. To me, it's a real opportunity.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, I was listening to something, I think it was last week, where whoever I was listening to was talking about the ability to take one day out per year and review all of that. And you've just mentioned so many different elements there. So whether it's with your partner, you go away and just have a reflection, and then look forward to all the things that you could change, whether it is wills. And, again, I've got different friends and groups and even family who just don't have wills. Even sort of mortgage rates. I don't know what the Reserve Bank has done today, whether or not they've reduced mortgage rates or not, but haven't heard yet. But again, if you don't ask, what I got out of the conversation, if you don't ask, you won't receive. So go and ask if they will reduce your rate to compete with X rate, if that's what you want to do. But a lot of people don't do that. A lot of business owners and families don't do that. They don't have the time to do that. So sometimes it's up to the professional to sort of take that time out to help them to do that.
Yeah, spot on. And it's something that I think, in terms of how much time that actually takes out of a professional's day to have that conversation and just to open those doors, it's a very small amount of time. It's a very high leverage activity, because the rewards are huge down the track, not just in terms of referral fees back, but also the more referrals that you provide other financial services companies, the more referrals typically come your way in return as well, especially if you are working with companies that have the same ethos and standards of service that you do. So there are just positives all around, in my mind, from running that, from that type of model. And if we're looking at AI and automation taking a large amount of time, or giving a large amount of time back to especially accounting professionals, well, then it's a question of what do we do with that time? And I think that 5-minute conversation with 10 clients a week is that's the way forward. If you want to leverage your time better, if you want to increase the overall what your firm is perceived as well, not just okay, you just do the tax. You're a fully fledged financial services firm in the client's eyes, because you help them with the tax, but you can also facilitate whatever else they need, and that's going to create the stickiest client that you've ever seen. So
yep. Oh, look, I agree. I think the key is to make sure that we can sort of continue to think like that. And I suppose if you don't think like that, you could be left behind as well. And I think if you
will be,
yeah,
there is no, it's here. So I don't mean to sound alarmist, and I know a lot of what I say sometimes seems a bit out there to those that are outside the tech circles, but I can guarantee you that within tech circles, everything that I have said is just the tip of the iceberg, I think, as to where it's expected that technology is heading. So I'm probably 80% excited, 20% nervous.
Okay.
And I think that's a pretty healthy way to weigh up what's coming.
Fair call. Fair call. Look, we've just gone 152. I didn't realize there was a couple of comments there actually as we were talking. So there was a couple of comments there. Oh, I didn't realize that chat is disabled. So apologies, James. How are you, mate? Always good to have you here and see your comments. So James has made a comment here. Often existing clients are already serviced to the maximum. So the upside of focusing there versus acquiring new clients is much less.
Correct. That's where acquiring new clients is definitely the way to go. Honestly, I haven't seen, I haven't spoken, and this is sort of part of my role within Tmrw, speaking with clients and helping open up opportunities for them to improve their finances. There are maybe 8, 9, 10 different sort of ways that clients can typically do that are relatively conventional. Most of the time, in my experience, maybe 1 or 2 of these doors have been taken care of or shut by other financial services professionals, but there's always some improvement that can be had. And at the end of the day, if there is no improvement, telling a client that they're in the best financial position possible and congratulating them for that is never a bad conversation to have.
Correct. And that was the other comment. So there was another one here that yes, our clients have financial goals, but we are truly selling peace of mind with the security of their future. And yes, accounting is the primary skills, but the goal is to encompass a broader knowledge and understanding of the client's financial situation, being proactive rather than reactive, and becoming future focused with our clients is the key. So 100%. Well said.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, we will open up questions. If you've got any questions to Torey, again, the underlying key here is that value proposition. I know, as we mentioned before, there's a lot of firms that are looking to acquire books, and whether it's financial planning books or whether it's accounting books, they still cost you at the end of the day. And my experience is when you're looking to buy books as well, that, if it's not done well, you'll probably lose 30% of that book in the first 12 to 24 months as well. Because again, it's that wheel on the motion of making sure that, we've got to have capacity to actually service clients as well. So they're the sorts of things to continually think about from a value proposition that I suppose, Torey, that you've raised today, to say, how are you going to do that moving forward? But yeah, happy to take any questions if you've got any. You got any parting comments that you would like to leave our audience with, Torey?
Nothing off the top of my head, Paul. No, I think we've pretty well covered what's in my mind.
Brilliant.
I think, as I said, I think just the investment of time that businesses really do need to make just to get up to speed with where things are at the moment is really vital and is going to pay big dividends in the future. If you can at least understand the base, and this is partly why I ran through what a GPT is. If you can understand the base technology at the moment, then understanding where the technology is heading is at least relatively straightforward, at least without big additional tech advancements. So then you can really understand within your business how you can best apply the changes that have already happened and the changes that are very likely to come.
Yep.
And that is going to give you, as a financial services professional, a huge leg up over the competition, because honestly, it's only going to be a small proportion who are those early adopters at the start. And once harnessed correctly, they're really going to be able to provide a superior service to clients for a cheaper price. And those are the firms or businesses that are really going to thrive moving
I'd
forward.
agree, and with a greater value proposition attached to that as well. And I think that's an important one. And you mentioned time before. Let me just check to see questions. There is a question there, but just as a quick one before I go to the question, time is something, a really good one that, you know, I tend to sort of challenge a few of the firms that I've worked with in the past in terms of where your time is spent and how much time is actually spent having those conversations with clients. So if you're not sometimes sure even where to start, depending on how if people are still doing timesheets or not, I'm not sure, but internally I'm sure they probably are. But you would know how much is actually done with my head down in the technical side and how much is my head up looking at my client and actually speaking to them about what's really important to them. And you know, the person that just made that comment before, they were anonymous, so I couldn't really tell you their name, but that's exactly right. You've got to move more to that model as opposed to the technical side, because that's where that could be taken over as well. So
Yeah, spot on. That's where things are going, and that's where a bit of a plug for just what we do at Tmrw. That's the process that we take clients through, is that more general education and giving a client a good overview of where they're at currently, where they want to go in the future, and then which financial services professionals should be or can be involved to add maximum value over that period of time. Just that process of giving that to a client and giving them peace of mind that, okay, if I do want to do something with my finances, I know who to talk to, I know how much it's going to cost me, I know what my options are moving forward. That is incredibly valuable in our experience for clients, because it really does get to the heart of what they really want. People might want to pay less tax, but they want to pay less tax because they want to free up cash flow, because they want to pay off their home loan, because they want the family to grow up in the home without it being a big stress over the top of their head. So these are the type of things that I think financial services firms, and I know it's something that you're passionate about in terms of your training and the way that you assist other accountancies and other financial services firms add value to their clients, is by having those more almost emotional type of conversations, really getting to the heart of what's going to make this client really happy at the end of the day, and how can I facilitate that?
Yeah, and the example you gave before is just continually asking the why. You know, it's usually when you get to the fifth why, you usually get the answer. So there's elements in there, and that's something we tend to lose as we grow up. Kids are very good, as we all know, asking whys. You know, they're inquisitive, they're like sponges. It's something we lose as we tend to get a little bit older, to asking that next why and that next why and that next why to get the answer. I have a quick question here from Adam. He said, how long does the process take and are there any fees involved?
For our process for
I,
Tmrw?
I think that's what he's talking about. I'm not
Yeah,
quite.
so our process is completely free for the clients. We work within a network of financial services professionals. So let's say if an accountant was to come and work with us, we would have a minimum of 2 meetings with those clients, just to expand on the value proposition that other financial services businesses can add and that we have within our network. So the first meeting would be get to know the client, get to know their goals, where they're at currently financially. The second meeting is where we can really direct them in terms of who is best going to be able to give the advice and the guidance in line with what those bigger picture goals are. It's a 2 meeting process, a couple hours over the course of 2 weeks for clients. And the, I guess, value proposition for the accountants who work with us financially, as well as the value proposition for the clients, seeing the accountant as the introducer of those services, is huge. It's massive. And it's something that I'm very passionate about from both sides, from the accounting side and the client side. So that's ultimately the process that we run through with each client. There's no sell involved of any particular service. We're completely independent when it comes to that. It's more so about what type of value can we add and how can we educate a client to feel comfortable taking advantage of that value.
Yep, brilliant. Got a final comment here from Delia. She said, I love the recommendations. I think I'm losing my voice. I don't know why. I love the recommendations of building strong referral partnerships. I think if you can find the right people, businesses, without over-servicing, clients appreciate you advising with a holistic approach. So a great tool to deepen the trust, and 100%. I would agree with that as well.
Yep, completely agree with that too.
Beautiful. Well, Torey, thank you. Thanks for, being a part of our first masterclass for 2025. I think, the little bits and pieces here and there, the little bits of learning that hopefully everyone could take away from. I always say to everybody, if you can take one thing away from these sessions, I think, again, you're further in front than people that haven't been on here. So hopefully everyone has taken a little bit away from that and can learn about how we can actually start doing things a little bit different as we go into 2025, 2026, and what the model looks like in 2028. I know we can't be fully solidified on what that may look like, but there are elements that are changing very quickly that we know that we can change along the way. And that was one of the key messages that I got today from Torey. So, mate, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
I greatly appreciate
to all of you guys that have joined us for the last hour or so, we've just ticked over 2:03. Thank you. Again, your loyalty again is amazing. We certainly enjoy having you online, and hopefully we've been able to bring an education twist that then you can take back and you can use within your firm moving forward to say, what do I need to start doing, and how do I need to start thinking differently to maybe provide a different value proposition back to my clients. Until we see you next time, thanks for joining us. And Torey, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.